here's what I want you to practice. Maybe for 5 minutes next time you're in the gym, hold a stretch for 3 minutes. And you're going to find that maybe 30 seconds, it starts to get annoying, difficult. But you set an intention that you're going to do 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And once you get to that 2 minutes, 5 minutes, you start to relax. And that's what I want you to think about the now is we got to stay present sometimes in those movement patterns. And it actually is going to start to show the mind that you're in control of your thoughts, your emotions. And to me, that's something that I've really been focused on lately because I don't have a ton of time. And if I say I got to do 15 things in a short amount of time, it's hard to be in the now. But if I say I got to do 2 things, then all of a sudden, somehow I've created more time, it feels like. All right, well, welcome back to another Rest, Eat, Move podcast. Today, we're going to talk about move. It's been a while since we've talked about move specifically. We're going to talk about motion creates positive emotion, how movement is 1.5 times more effective than antidepressant medications, therapy. Doesn't cure everything, but what we're going to talk about is how motion really does create positive emotion in the mind and the body, and it's probably your favorite topic to talk about.
It was interesting. I was speaking this week, and on the webinar, it kept getting the order wrong, like sleep, move, whatever.
Move, sleep, rest.
Yeah. So I said, well, there's a kind of a sequence. We've been talking about resting, how you eat, and then one of the greatest pills you could take would be, if you could put it in a bottle, would be movement. So if we could put movement in a bottle, I think it'd be the most prescribed medication in the world.
What would you put in the bottle, though?
Well, there's medication. Now you can take pills now for movement that actually.
Yeah, but what would you put it? What's the chemicals that you're putting in the body?
Something to speed up the body, speed up so it's going to raise your heart rate up. But when I was listening to, I'm trying to think, it was a Freakonomics podcast or one of them back in the day. It was very interesting. I think it was Freakonomics, but they were talking about that the science was you can now take a pill to give you those training effects from movement. And one would be increased heart rate and blood pressure, and really a lot of the typical things that would happen when you move your body. But I kept getting it like, wow, they're really missing the whole point of movement is what it does for the mind. And so it was all about the physiological changes of movement. But really what we want to talk about today is, in my opinion, the number one benefit of moving your body is what it does for my mind. It washes the brain.
All right, so motion creates positive emotion. As I'm raising 3 kids, one of the things that you try to do is you try to enforce their effort versus the outcome. So if you're talking about, and there's a lot of studies, I think it's Dr. Carol Dwyer wrote the book, A Mindset, but instead of saying, wow, you're so smart, you say, wow, you did a really good job, like preparing, practicing. And you're encouraging that. And so when you think about movement, and if we can just replicate the results, I don't think it's going to get us to where we want to go, because the pursuit, the effort, from point A to Z is where all the magic is. It's not necessarily Z. So talk about that. When you think about the physical benefits of movement, great. Heart rate, blood pressure, muscles, endurance. But what about the mental aspects? And I don't think any pill is going to give you those elements.
Well, you and I both, when we're doing presentations, we have a slide, and a slide is kind of a segue into move. But we don't put down exercise, we put the word move. And so I'll ask the audience, what's the difference between exercise and move? And then many people have the thought that exercise is hard and difficult and not a fun and whatever, versus changing your mindset around moving your body every day. So the first thing we try to do is get people to think about the mindset of moving daily. And again, back to, you don't need to do a lot, but if you have the mindset, I'm going to move every day, the major benefit is going to be doing to the mind that emotion. And so if we're trying to get people to have better emotion, whether it's better mood, whatever it might be, energy, all that stuff comes from moving the body. And then the other thing too is the sidebar is I'm going to probably sleep better. I'm going to have better digestion. overall health, all that stuff that follows with that. But that's the big thing for most people, because about 85% of American population does not intentionally move their body on a daily basis. And so that's a big problem. So if we could really get the whole world to start moving more consistently, intentionally, you're going to see it help so many different things. And nobody's ever disappointed when they move their body. Like, oh, I wish I would not move my body. But many people, they're not in the moment. There's a lot of problems. Like, I got everything else to do. I got laundry to do. I got to go to work. I got to go to dry cleaners. I got to do whatever it might be. But they're thinking about everything but so that's the thing for me. Whenever I'm having a challenging day, I always have to have that self-talk that if I just move my body for a little bit, I'm going to feel better.
Yeah, I think I wrote a couple things down. So 85% of the population doesn't move, so they're not moving enough. And then I would say there's a part of that 15% that moves way too much, too hard, too red line. They're chasing something, running from something, trying to out-train something. I don't know what that percentage is. So we're talking about a small percentage that's kind of doing it not too hot, not too cold, just about right. But at the end of the day, we all want to move in the future. And I think we all want to have good emotions, have a good mood. And again, I'll repeat this. This is, I wouldn't call it common knowledge, but this is out there for the public to know that we now know that exercise is 1.5 times more effective than a prescription or therapy for changing your mood. Now, I'm not talking about mental health disease and things that need really some extreme therapy or medications for. I'm talking about the general population that's struggling with anxiety and depression and mood and energy, and 1.5 times more effective. And it might be something that we have to look at as a prescription approach to handling some of these issues. Because if our motion creates positive emotion, so when you get someone up moving or your kids are playing, they're laughing, they're smiling, they're sweating, they're working hard, there's something intertwined in that you can't just pluck out. So if I struggle to learn how to do a movement pattern, there's something getting wired in the brain that actually gets you in this flow state versus this anticipatory or this dwelling on the past that I think a lot of us can fall victim to, because we're not doing physical labor anymore. When I mow the lawn, you can kind of get lost in the task of doing the physical activity. Now I have a riding lawnmower now, my lawn's so big, but doing the mulch, doing the yard work, doing physical labor, gosh, there's something very powerful about that. And I think for people that do physical labor, they would agree they feel good doing physical labor. And if they do it too much, they get exhausted. But my point is as we get into this knowledge worker that's just in front of a computer that has everything at their fingertips, I don't think we do some of these movement patterns that we're designed to do that can flush the mind, can get us to feel better. And I think that's where it's so important that we think about movement differently, but really what we're ultimately saying, we got to think about exercise differently too, because we're not always going to be able to just move do a rock climbing or a hike, and that's where exercise can really fit into somebody's lifestyle of structure to create some of these rituals.
Well, and I think you mentioned earlier about like a prescription, and if you think about, if you really analyze a lot of people, let's just say that they're type A, maybe they have a lot of anxiety. Many times their exercise is too intense.
If they're exercising.
Yeah, so if they do move their body regularly, it's, they think they got to go like crazy, they redline, it's too intense. And reality is that person needs to move, but they need to do more relaxation type movements, more stretching, more restorative movements and things like that. So when I have somebody that I really set back with, and again, nothing wrong with getting after it here and there, but if this is how you're wired, we need to make sure we're plugging in some movements that are not so intense. And then the other person that can't get out of bed in the morning because they just don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning, that person we need to get after it a little bit more. So again, it can really be prescriptive, because when you start doing that, then you start really getting the benefits of that's what movement's all about. Because and I've seen so much before. Way back in the day, they had the advertisement of the machine that cost like $17,000, and you only had to be on it for 4 minutes. But it was so intense, and it was advertised in every magazine. People bought it like crazy. But they missed the whole point. The whole benefit of moving your body is not the high intensity, what it's doing for my anaerobic system and cardiovascular system and everything else. It's really understanding the benefit of that. So I think that's where people get it wrong sometimes when they think about exercise. It's really what it does for your mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about sweating, like actual intensity that's hard enough, that really puts you into this place of, wow, this is actually a little bit of stress on the body that puts you in more, I would say, resilient mindset. And we've seen this where people are trying to exercise, they've been told to exercise, but they're just kind of phoning it in or following what someone's telling them, and they're just going through the motions. That doesn't work either. Is it better than nothing? Sure, but it's not. So when you compare it to say, well, I still don't feel like I should, there is some effort that has to be made to round that corner. So if you're stuck in bed, probably the best thing that we can do is really get you uncomfortable doing something where maybe you're so winded you have to stop, or maybe you feel like you've gone from that aerobic to anaerobic and you're almost sick to your stomach. That is actually somewhat of a powerful adaptation that has to happen. And that's where I think we miss the boat. It's not just popping a pill and it works. You do have to do some action. You can't just phone it in.
You got to put some effort into it. And then again, it's like putting your car in the garage and putting the accelerator down. You're going to burn it out. And when you move the body, that's what you're using. You're using all sorts of different hormones to allow the body to adapt and grow and benefit and everything else. So there's so many wonderful things about moving the body, but I always step back and say, why are we not moving the body? And I wrote in my Rest, Eat, Move book, what holds people back? And so I have basically 5 of them. The first one is values and beliefs. And I sit down. In fact, I had a couple clients yesterday, and I sit down with this. Sometimes they get sideways and they can't get it in, but people value their health, but they believe they need to move an hour, they need to get in the gym, whatever. So that doesn't line up. They do value their health, then why aren't they moving their body 5 or 10 minutes a day?
So the values are not lining up with the beliefs. Everybody wants to feel good, but they believe they're going to have to sacrifice
they
used to.
They need to do push-ups and pull-ups and kill themselves and sprint and get on the treadmill for an hour. The list goes on. So I always ask, we talk a lot about beliefs. I want to know what their beliefs are, and I want to know what their values are around that. And then it's funny when you start bringing these up, what people start to tell you.
So you're not asking people to change their values necessarily, because those are hard to change.
No, I'm asking them already. Do you value your health? Oh yeah, I really value my health. Do you value your ability to move? Yeah, oh yeah, I really value my ability to move. Okay, so how do you continue the value of your health, and how do we improve that? Well, we got to move. Well, what's your beliefs around movement? Well, I don't really like exercise. Well, why not? Well, I just don't have a lot of time, and you can see how this starts to roll.
Yeah, so
I get uncomfortable. I don't like to do strength training. I don't like to hurt. I don't like to do whatever.
Yeah, so I think that's a key.
It's a huge one. So when you start out with people, I want to know what your values are.
Well, let's pause there for a second, because one of the things I wanted to point out is I threw out this stat that sometimes can be just stats, and people are probably listening thinking 1.5 times more effective. That's a powerful statement. But let's go a little bit deeper into why. So when you exercise regularly, why does it ease anxiety and depression? Well, one of the reasons is it releases feel-good endorphins. These are chemicals. These are hormones. And then we have these natural cannabis-like chemicals in the body too. And so as we're thinking about CBD and THC and the increase of that, you have these endogenous cannabinoids that are natural brain chemicals that can enhance the sense of well-being. So when you take CBD or THC, you have this sense of well-being or this feel-good. Well, exercise actually can trigger those too. So when we think about values, the values is I want to feel good. I want to feel good. The belief is I don't feel good. But if I take this, I feel good. And so that's where we sometimes can get caught up into this is the only way, or I've done exercise once and I didn't like it. We got to step back and say, well, we didn't do everything. And what is really the body designed to do? It's designed to move.
So again, you go back to the value and belief. I'll ask my clients, do you value sleep? I do. So how do you think you're going to get a better night of sleep? Well, probably one of the greatest ways to help you sleep better is to move throughout the day. If you're not moving, again, back to the car in the garage with the accelerator on. The second thing is the focus on the now. So many people, when they get into a movement plan, they're not in the moment. They're thinking about, what do they got to do tonight? What do I got to do tomorrow? They're not really getting the amazing benefit. So when I hear people talking about taking this pill or doing that, or the high intensity machine that you do for 4 minutes, you're not into the now.
I love that one. The the visual cue I use for that is Willy Wonka and the Golden Goose. I don't know if anybody gets it, but the point is she wants the golden goose now, and she gets everything she wants, and she wants it now, and then she sits on the scale and she's a bad egg. I probably the most, if you're saying what are the 5 issues, I would say that I'm the worst at number 2. I think we all are struggling with that. I got to pick up the kids, I got to get work done, and so where am I going to fit it in? And
but that's the benefit sometimes of play.
The benefit of play. And so when people don't have structured, organized lifestyle habits around play, you're not going to just fall into it in our world. The world is not set up to just stumble into playing.
Right. So that's the thing we always try to think about is like, okay, how do I sit down? So I'll ask my clients, when you move your body, are you thinking about everything else, or are you in the now? And then I'll ask them about play and whatever. And they're like, I never thought of it that way. I said, because like today we played paddleball, you like to play pickleball, golf, the list goes on. And we like to do that. When I'm snow skiing, I don't listen to headphones. I used to, but I love to be skiing and just listening and being in the now, think about everything around me and everything else. So I think that's the big thing when can you get people to, I remember training your grandfather, and we'd be in the gym and he'd go, I'm already done. I go, Dad, what do you, I went over and got a drink for 2 seconds. You're not all done. But he was always way ahead because he just wanted to get through it.
Yeah.
Or he wasn't in the now. And the number 3 is knowledge. I truly believe people don't have a clue what they're doing.
Let me go back to the now real quick. Here's something I noticed and actually I heard. I did this sound bath meditation a couple weeks back, and what a sound bath is, if you don't know, it's music that kind of gets you into this calming state. Sometimes it can take you to an irritating state that you're trying to sit with. So think about the most annoying sound in the world. Can you handle that? So it's a combination of these things. So it's this woman playing these instruments and singing. It's incredible. And then her partner, gentleman's playing this other instrument, kind of like a guitar, that's very soothing, in a very soothing environment where you're laying on a mat and you're just kind of chilling out. For the first 4 or 5 minutes, you're uncomfortable because your body's saying, okay, this is enough, great. And then you hit kind of that area that you're supposed to hit where you start to actually get into deep relaxation. Now, one of the things that I heard, when people stretch, you see the typical stretch, touch the toes, take the arm across the thing. It might stretch the muscle. You might loosen up. But we now know 60 seconds to 3 minutes of a deep stretch actually gets you into starting to release some of these hormones. So one of the things that if you're listening, saying, well, this motion and positive emotion, here's what I want you to practice. Maybe for 5 minutes next time you're in the gym, hold a stretch for 3 minutes. And you're going to find that maybe 30 seconds it starts to get annoying, difficult. But you set an intention that you're going to do 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And once you get to that 2 minutes, 5 minutes, you start to relax. And that's what I want you to think about the now is we got to stay present sometimes in those movement patterns. And it actually is going to start to show the mind that you're in control of your thoughts, your emotions. And to me, that's something that I've really been focused on lately because I don't have a ton of time. And if I say I got to do 15 things in a short amount of time, it's hard to be in the now. But if I say I got to do 2 things, then all of a sudden, somehow I've created more time, it feels like. I'm not in a hurry.
Yeah, and again, back to the knowledge, you're looking at like, hey, I'm doing less, which creates more. And so, like many times I had a woman I was training yesterday, and we did a restorative stretches against the wall. So she's laying on her back, working her hips, and she said to me, wow, these stretches are very restorative. And I had her work on her breath, and now she was just completely relaxed. So getting in the now is really, and that's why play is so important. But also when you're in the gym, of actually feeling the body, that's the nervous system, feeling the muscles working. You're teaching people that. So again, back to being in the now, which leads into the knowledge, which is number 3. And then you ask them questions. Do you understand this, and body alignment, and posture, and reps and sets, and range of motion, and resistance, and the list goes on. So the goal is to help people understand. Many people believe the best way to lose weight still today is cardiovascular exercise, and that's completely false.
So knowledge can be anything that you want it to be. You want to go so deep in the weeds and understand physiologically what's happening, you can. And there's a lot of people that really can go deep. And then there's people that say, I don't want to know, but you got to know enough. You got to know enough knowledge.
Yeah, and so when I wrote the Rest, Eat, Move book, for example, in the cardiovascular section, I got into the Krebs cycle and anaerobic threshold. And
VO2 max.
Yeah, and VO2 max. And so, stuff that, but then again, some people wanted to know more about that. Some people, when they get into the whole, strength training, I have an 89-day training program that's very specific. But again, wherever you are in your journey with this, knowledge is a big area, because the goal is you want to have the optimal results by what you're doing. So
now, here's a key, I would say, caveat here. Knowledge is sandwiched in between here. And sometimes people say, well, I know that. And, think about some of these podcasts or some of these programs that people are consuming, like all-time, long-form. I think we know a lot more. And sometimes you need knowledge, but it's what you do with that knowledge. It's actually...
Yeah, wisdom is
not what
taking knowledge and putting it into practice.
It's what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And also the knowledge to know I would call it the gray area. So if we know black and white VO2 max, and all you're trying to do is like get these numbers on your Whoop to line up, sometimes I think that can be too rigid. So knowledge can also be practical. And
again, a lot of the wearables today, like they'll tell you you're getting this much,
strain or
whatever it might be. In reality, that's training wheels. It's okay, but there's nothing better to help you start recognizing. When I have some of my clients that are really more in tune, I'll ask them, do you know what your heart rate is right now? And most of them can get an idea within about 5 to 10 beats exactly where they're at, because they're aware. Dr. Phil used to say, what's your big toe doing on your right foot? Well, until you start focusing on that. So when people are really getting into knowledge many times, especially when they're doing strength training, they've never been taught to how to plug the brain into the muscle, and that's the nervous system. And so I used to say to my clients, do you feel this? And they're like, no, I feel it over here. And I'm like, what are we doing? We're not doing that. So, but that's where they felt it. And then eventually as they learned how to scapular retract, they learned the posture, they learned all that stuff, but it took some time. So that's just an awareness, the knowledge of change. And then number 4 is where everybody gets it wrong, is time. You don't need much time. And so if you're listening to this or watching this today, just recognize movement as compound interest. If you don't have a lot of time, you don't need a lot of time. You just need to be intentional about moving your body. And if you do this for 5 minutes, you're probably going to go to 8 minutes, because the hardest part about movement is just getting started. But don't let time get in your way. Do not let time get in your way. Some days you'll have more time, some days you'll have less time, but you're really going to focus on, every day I'm going to try to move my body for 5 minutes. And if you do that every day, you're probably going to move more than that. And even if you don't have even 5 minutes, do you have 2 minutes? We talk about restorative stretches. Now we're back to the knowledge. What can you do in this little time frame? But don't get hamstrung that I can't do X because I don't have 30 minutes to an hour or whatever. I used to think that way. If I don't have an hour, I don't have time today. But I sure don't anymore. And the last one, number 5, is enjoyment. It's like going from extrinsic motivation. I know I need to move my body, do all that, but really starting to find activities you enjoy. Because now we're moving into the intrinsic motivation. You do it because you want to, not because you have to. I'm not counting the reps. I'm not counting the sets. I'm not counting, oh gosh, I'm done in 10 minutes. I'm actually enjoying the process. And that's not easy to do. That takes time. But those are the big ones.
That's kind of what we talked about at the beginning too. Is so like we can take a pill and we can talk about the physical benefits, but there's more to it. And once you find that intrinsic enjoyableness about the movement, you're going to get so many different benefits, long-term, short-term, in the moment. It's going to wash your brain. Then next thing you know, you're going to feel better, and it's just going to create a better nervous system.
Well, and you're a high-level golfer, and so many times we'll try to find activities that people really enjoy doing. Hey, I really like to play golf. Okay, so let's design a movement plan that will, enhance your play on the golf course or tennis or pickleball or whatever it is. And I think people get excited about that. Now they're training for something, or they maybe have a 5K coming up, or they may have a walk coming up, or maybe they're competing in a triathlon, or they're doing a swim activity, or maybe they're just going to go skiing. Your mom and I went up to the Upper Peninsula a couple weeks ago, and all these buses were following us around, and they were seniors, but many of the seniors couldn't move to get the vistas that we were looking at. So there's lots of ways to
When you say a senior, I mean, aren't you a senior?
It's interesting.
I had to throw that in there.
John O'Leary and I were playing pickleball the other day, and for some reason, these two young guys were coming up, and they wanted to know if we wanted to play with them, and something. And one thing led to another, and said, yeah, you want to take onto the Medicare guys? And they're like, you guys are on Medicare? It's like we're 900 years old.
Well, you are.
So the answer, of course, we're seniors. In fact, I turned 66 in a few weeks.
Get some discounts.
But the goal is to, again, think about why am I moving, and all the benefits, and constantly tell yourself about the benefits. Because sometimes people say all the time, you just love to exercise, you love to move. Not all the time. Sometimes I'm tired, but then I have this self-talk that if I just move my body for 5 minutes, how great I'm going to feel.
Well, here's the thing. You love the ability to move.
Yes.
I think people miss that point. Everybody complains about they can't move, but they never complain that they didn't choose to move. So it's a choice. We're all dealt different hands and different motivators and hand-eye coordination. And, I watched the kids play, and different kids have different skill levels, and you could see how they could get deterred from playing sports. But we do choose. We choose how much we move. We choose how we believe in movement. Some of it happens, but we can also at this moment choose to say, let's see if I can change my, emotions. Let's see if I can change how my body feels and how my body looks, and try to find something in it enjoyable. And I think this 5-step process of, number one, you got to value it. If you don't feel like you value it, we can't go to 2, 3, 4, or 5.
Well, the other thing too, if I could go back and you could kind of paint a canvas here, if you could really go back in time, like especially in grade school, pretty much all the kids are moving and they're laughing and they're on the playground. If you just put a camera out there, all of them are moving. Mm-hmm. They're on the monkey bars, or jumping rope, they're playing with a ball or whatever. But then slowly over time, things start to transition. Now we get, again, it's not like we can't have competition because we want that. But then if you're not good at something, I remember, we'd play in grade school, and we played kickball, and some of the kids didn't run out, get up in line in the kickball because they weren't good at kickball. So then over time, they lose their confidence. But there's nothing better than getting into. That's why I love the President's Physical Fitness competition way back in the day, because it wasn't really about games. It was a competition about yourself. Can you throw a ball? Can you hang from a bar? Can you do pull-ups, push-ups, broad jump, run, whatever? But I think that's where we got to go back and say, okay, at a young age, if we're really trying to talk about mental health and physical health and obesity and type 2 diabetes, whatever, we got to get our young people to move the rest of their life. Not like, oh, I'm moving. I can't tell you how many times I get people to say this. I played this in high school and I played this in college and I don't do that anymore. Why did that change? I listen to ESPN and I'm listening to some of these announcers, and they used to be pro football players, and now they don't move anymore. I'm like, why? So to me, they're getting it wrong of the intensity, the hard, the difficult, whatever. Reality is movement should be joyful. It should be feeling great. There's all sorts of benefits to that. And don't get me wrong, you can get after it in the gym, and I've done that, but at the same time is really the joy of moving your body. I think it's a gift to everybody. It's a gift you give yourself.
All right, so let's do a little bit of speed, wrap this up, because I think we hit the point that motion can be powerful, and it's going to change your emotions if you allow it to. What are you seeing right now as you go into the gym that you just can't stand and really would love to create better knowledge around if they asked you a good question?
Well, again, there's lots of reasons why people are doing lots of things, but I always ask, this is what I wrote in my book. This is on 223, but on a 1 to 10 scale, this is what I ask my clients. How would you rate your current fitness level? And how important is movement in your life? I kind of ask the question right from the beginning. And they'll tell me on a 1 to 10 scale. And then I'll ask them, why do you think that? And some will underestimate, or some will overestimate. So I'll find out that are they currently moving their body on a daily basis? They'll answer that right away. And generally they'll say, no, I'm not moving daily. I might move a couple times a week, but I'm not moving daily. And then if they're moving their body daily, or they're not moving their body daily, what's holding them back? So again, we go back to the 5 things that what's holding them back. And so now I start really getting a good idea of where we're going. And then do they have enough space in their life to move? And this really uncovers a lot. No, I don't have the time. Well, the average person in the United States today is on 6 hours of their phone. So let's talk about a little bit about that and their time and their schedule and whatever. And then I ask them, what do they want to accomplish and what are some of their goals? And now it's moving into them starting to go, here comes the self-awareness that you mean to tell me, and that's what I always hear, you mean to tell me? I go, yep, I'm here to tell you, you don't need to spend a half hour, you don't need 45 minutes, you don't need to do that. But then I also will create some self-awareness. Can you get on the floor? What's your hips look like? Can you hang from a bar? Can't do that. So now we create some awareness like, okay, we need to get after this if I want to continue to move, which that's what they say. So I love doing that at the very beginning, and the whole movement section is asking these questions, and they start uncovering really what they want. And now it's their plan, it's not my plan. So I just want to share that with everybody, that's something you want to ask yourself if some of those questions, and if you are moving where you want to be, if you're not moving, and you know this all the time, somebody has a knee problem. I ran into a guy the other day at the health club, and he hasn't played golf anymore because he's got a back issue. And, I don't want to be that guy, but I want to say, wow, there's so many wonderful things you could do, back to knowledge, that you could allow you to move. Because the human body, as we all agree, has amazing ability to heal and self-correct if you get it in the right position. So that's the thing I think I would ask people in the gym is like, why are they putting 7 plates on each side of the leg press with horrible form?
All right, so he finally got back to my question. You can tell that he likes to talk about movement. Give me some juice, because I want the listeners, because this is real life. There's influencers on social media with 10 million followers that are teaching incorrect form and function and a bunch of garbage. So you got to address what actually is being seen. So back to the original question, and I think that was very valuable what you just shared. But what are you seeing that just is not good?
Well, okay, in cardio, people are spending way too much time doing cardio. Number one, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. Cardio is a very ineffective way to lose weight.
And what's that going to do to them?
They're going to get the body of alignment. Just keep going down the path. So now the body's out of alignment, and you're just going to reinforce and get tighter muscles and imbalance going on. So again, I'm always going to go back to
the range of motion is going to decrease.
Range of motion, but I'll go back to way back in the day. I like, hey, how much time are you doing cardio? 45 minutes to an hour. What do you do? Oh, I do the track. Oh, okay. Why do you do the track for so long? Well, it helps me So then I'll have them climb the stairs for, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and they can't even talk. They're completely out of breath. And they're like, wow.
They're getting comfortable
Yeah,
doing
they're getting training, very little training effect.
Yeah, training effect.
So they're getting very little training effect. I'm not trying to kill them, but I'm just sharing with them like, wow, what if we just did some calisthenics? We did that for 5 minutes.
All right, so cardio. Too much cardio gets the body out of alignment. Right. What else?
When you look at strength training, there's no posture and alignment. You would never do that to your car. So when you're in the gym, if you can't handle the alignment, your intensity is too high. Back to the leg press. If you can't maintain extension in your lower back doing a leg press and it's hollowing out the back of the pad in the leg press, you're completely in flexion, you're killing your lower back. So it looks good but you have no range of motion. And then again, back to posture and alignment. If you can't do a lat pull down with your elbows going directly to the floor, then you're not using your lats. You're using everything. Your rotator cuff, you're using your biceps. So the first thing I try to get people to do is now, like, what am I trying to accomplish?
So now injury is going to come in.
And then you look at a perfect push-up. We start with a modified push-up. But when you look at a perfect push-up, again, that's like a plank on steroids. You don't need to do planks if you're doing a perfect push-up. But then you see a push-up that shoulders are just getting crushed because there's no scapular retraction. So we can go on and on about this, and we will do in the future, but that's what I see in the gym. And sometimes I just don't. I'm like, well, I just want to come over and tap him on the shoulder. What are you trying to accomplish here? Because I can help you.
Yeah, so that's at the end of the day. What are you trying to accomplish? I think what you're ultimately seeing when you do see people in the gym is the intensity is just one direction. And not, it's like a baseball pitcher. If all they throw is the smoke, you're going to learn how to throw, learn how to hit that. So you need the changeup, you need the balance, and again, back to that now that we talked about is sometimes mixing it up where you're the most uncomfortable is probably where you need to spend the most time.
And one other thing, just real quickly here, the reason we did a bunch of photos in the Rest Eat Move book is that I truly believe, doesn't matter what age, people do not have, they're not doing enough restorative movements. And so as we age, we start losing mobility, flexibility in the fingers and the hands and the wrists and the elbows, and then we go to the feet and the ankles and whatever. And so that's the stuff that I think more people need to spend a little more time on, and they spend very little time on that. And so when I do different movements with them, I instantly show them their limiting factor is X because they're not doing that kind of stuff. So why are we putting all this weight on? I remember watching, Dr. Squat, Fred Hatfield, way back in the day in Chicago, and he was the first, man to squat 1,000 pounds, and the guy's just a super smart guy, PhD. And I watched him walk away at in his mid-50s, and he could barely move. And I thought to myself, wow, here's the guy, one of the strongest guys in the world squatting, but he can't move.
Again, probably beliefs that I can, if I push more weight, whether it's ego or
But
health.
as people age, as we all age, we want to feel good. We have less injuries. We want to move better. That's where movement comes in. And then I think
what we're going to see, here's what we're going to see is as exercise is becoming more popular for the folks that are exercising, what's the sex appeal? Look good, push the weight. What we're going to forget about, though, that I'm seeing, because when you're young, you can do whatever you want, is we're going to live long. So you might look good 40s, 50s, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm still I'm still squatting with the bar behind my neck, and now I got some disc issues at 60. You still got 30 years left.
Yeah, again, just touch on that real quickly. Nobody should be ever doing a barbell bench press. And I've done this forever. Once you hit 40, no more barbell bench press. Number 2, no more barbell squats. No more. If you're, again, I get it. We worked with a bunch of athletes, but that's a no-no. Once you hit 40 for both of those.
But tell them why.
Well, when you use a bar, when it's called adduction. So when you take your hands and put them together, that's called adduction. And the chest does horizontal adduction to 90 degrees. So that means your elbow can't pass your shoulder line. If it does, then you're going to basically impinge, put more pressure on the shoulder. Number two, as I take a barbell and I try to come up, there's nowhere for the elbows to adduct. So the adduction occurs in the shoulder.
So here, listen to this. Or they make these grips now. So you put them on the barbell. And as you go down, they go out. And as you come in, they come in. And, so we're going to get technology and all those things. But your point is...
But wait, stop for a minute. So why in the heck wouldn't you just do a dumbbell?
Well, exactly.
Because then you have the balance.
Back to the guy that wants to squat 1,000 pounds, because it's the number. It's the look.
Okay.
It's the weights on the thing.
Then I've done 140-pound dumbbells.
Now you got them excited.
But the point of it is like, what am I trying to accomplish? Back to what we said. If you looked at a squat... Again, if you put a bar on your back, that bar from gravity goes straight down. Well, it can't go straight down because you have to support the bar. So you're leaning forward, your butt's going back. All you're doing is taking your facet and just crushing them. Mm-hmm. So if I wanted to add more weight, then I could use dumbbells again or whatever I want to do. But for many people, just handling their own body weight.
What's the intention? Is the intention to be the world record squatter? You're going to squat.
Right.
Right.
If you're going to do
a power lift,
and I've had bench press guys. I had the Michigan State champ bench presser. He has to bench press. That's what he's doing. Or if you're in college and you're in a combine, you're doing a barbell bench press. But once you start hitting about 30, 35, 40, get rid of the bars, everybody. You can do a bar. We use bars all the time, but not for a chest press or bench press, and not for a squat.
Nice. All right, I think this is good, and I think we'll do part 2.
But one last thing here. You said the number one thing we're talking about today is what it does for your mind. Motion creates positive emotion. And I really believe that in our world, we get this wrong. It's always about the look of the body and all the stuff that we're talking about. I get that. But the bottom line is, what does it do for your mind?
Well, we get it wrong in 2 ways. The reason why we talk about rest, eat, move is... got to get some things right before you just think that you're going to out-train everything. Number 2 is we focus on time, okay? And so it's the same thing with the look over the feel. If you focus on energy before time, all of a sudden you get a ton more time. If you focus on how you feel, you now have a repeatable, scalable, sustainable look. I've seen you when you competed. It's a great look. Not sustainable. It's nice to achieve it, create that awareness in both directions. I've seen when you let it go for a while too. That's not a direction you want to be either. So I think if we reframe it of I want to feel real good, you will look real good.
And I had a couple in this last weekend, just beautiful people from Texas, and the last day. The thermostat wasn't great in the hotel, and they didn't get really great night of sleep, and they were tired in the morning. And so we came in, and we were wrapping it up. We only had about 3 or 4 hours more to go. But I said, let's do this. Let's do some restorative movements. And we got her on the ground, and we started doing some mobility, flexibility stuff, and worked on her breath and just really relaxing movements. And she said, I feel so good. That's where movements can come in. We don't have to always think about as a high intensity, but movement can change so much your state, your mood, your energy, everything that goes with that. And I think that's the point today, is that movement is magical, and it really what it does for the brain. And it relaxes the mind, relaxes the body, improves digestion, helps you sleep. Obviously can make the body look great, connective tissue, muscles, heart, all that kind of stuff. But the really main benefit is what it does for my mind.
Yeah, and in your wearable is not going to, unfortunately, tell you that. They're going to tell you how many calories you burn, but they're not going to tell you,
yes.
Oh, wow, you just recharged your battery. So, yeah, let's do a part 2. Motion creates positive emotion. If you're going to take something away from this, 1.5 times more effective than pharmaceuticals and therapy. Pharmaceuticals and therapy, specifically therapy, can be a tremendous, add-on, and I believe in it. What we have to tap into is what we've been given that if we just choose to move our body in a way that we can eventually find something we enjoy, it's magical. So we'll see you again next time. We're going to do part 2, Motion Creates Positive Emotion. Have a great week.